Hi, everybody. My name is Brady Fulton. I am the Executive Director for Enabling Technology Solutions, and I'm joined with me today with my co-hosts. We have Ezra Reynolds, Assistive Technology Professional and working out of the Chattanooga, Tennessee area, as well as Evan Smith, our East Tennessee technician, handles all of our referrals in East Tennessee. So thank you for coming back. This is episode 2 of our Enabling Tech talks. We are going to focus on how enabling and assistive technology can support older adults experiencing cognitive decline. So whether from Alzheimer's, dementia, or mild cognitive impairment, we'll cover common challenges, share some practical solutions, and highlight real-world examples of how these tools are helping people live more safely and independently. We'll wrap up with some Q&A and give you a sneak peek at our next session topic. So why are we doing these talks? The Enabling Tech Talk series is designed to introduce caregivers, professionals, and families to practical technology solutions that promote independence, safety, and quality of life for people with disabilities and aging adults. Today, we're definitely looking more into aging adults. Each session focuses on real-world tools, success stories, and expert insights to help bridge the gap between need and available technology. So before we get too far into it, I wanted to make sure that I just spell out some definitions. So some of the words that we'll be using today that we're going to be talking about. One is dementia. So dementia is a general term for a decline in cognitive function severe enough to interfere with daily life. It affects memory, reasoning, communication, and the ability to perform everyday activities. Another term that we'll use is Alzheimer's. So Alzheimer's disease is a progressive degenerative brain disorder and the most common cause of dementia. It is characterized by abnormal protein buildup in the brain that leads to the death of brain cells. And then one more would be MCI, or mild cognitive impairment. It's a condition involving a noticeable decline in the cognitive abilities, including memory and thinking skills. It's greater than expected for age. So obviously we're going to have some decline over age, but it's greater than what we expect. But it's not severe enough to interfere significantly with daily living. So why does this matter? And specifically in the later stages of life, a lot of times the people we're working with, we'll be addressing these topics with them. So as individuals age, especially when facing cognitive challenges like dementia or Alzheimer's, they often need more support to stay safe, maintain routines, and stay connected. Enabling technology can fill critical gaps, helping people remain independent longer, easing caregiver stress, and improving overall quality of life. Whether it's a simple voice reminder, a motion-activated light, or a smart lock, these tools empower aging adults to live with more dignity and control their own homes.
Right. I'm just going to cover a few of the challenges that are faced by individuals and caregivers for cognitive decline. The first one is memory loss, just forgetting where you put something. This can be confusion about how to do a task. This can be getting lost or elopement. This is especially common in Alzheimer's, where they grab their purse and they're going to the country store to get, to meet Becky, and Becky's been dead for 60 years and the store's been gone for 70. It's just, they don't know where they're going, or they know where they're going, but it doesn't exist anymore. Sometimes this is how people learn that their loved one is having this cognitive decline. Is they went for a drive and are found 8 hours away in their car, no idea where they're at. Another common problem is medication mismanagement. If you're taking one pill a day, it's not so bad usually, but if you're taking 30 a day, it gets to be a problem, especially when they are really small or they look the same. A lot of people have, problems when it's like, well, this pill is, if you accidentally overdose on it, not a problem, take some water. This pill looks identical, and if you take too much of that, you're going to be dead. This is how we learned that my grandfather was starting to have cognitive decline, because he had been a chemist. He was the one who handled all the medications for himself and my grandmother. And, he accidentally sent her to the hospital 4 times by mixing up medications. Um, there's difficulty doing daily living activities. This could be, hygiene, bathing, wiping, brushing teeth. This could be using the TV remote control, just all the things that are part of normal life. Putting on clothes, getting the buttons, getting all the fine motor dexterity that usually fades with cognitive decline, or kitchen tasks and cooking, like leaving the stove on, is pretty common. Well, I mean, that's a huge safety issue. Not only, could someone come by and accidentally burn themselves on the hot stove, you can cause a house fire, or property damage, or you've left the door open, and now your house could be robbed or vandalized, or things like that. You can have communication struggles, depending on which parts of the brain are decaying at which speed. You might have asphasia, where you're saying the words, but the words you're saying aren't the words that you mean. And so nobody around you can actually understand what you're actually saying. It could also be a hard time understanding more advanced concepts or more advanced words. It could be not being able to speak loudly enough that other people can hear you, because your brain generates voltage to run your muscles. And the less voltage that you are producing from your brain, the less oomph your muscles produce. And so you may not be able to speak as well or articulate as well, because your jaw or your tongue or your lips are not working as strongly as they used to. A big one that we have a lot of people impacted by is caregiver burnout. There's a really good reason why caregiving is its own profession, why you have people in nursing homes and assisted living facilities, and why in-home caregivers are paid the hefty sums they are normally paid. It's because this is a full-time job. And it's hard, because you're dealing with an adult who is big and heavy and hard to take care of, sometimes combative, doing things deliberately as kind of a sabotage. And that's a drain on the caregivers. A lot of people go into this type of care thinking, how hard could it be? And, wow, this is my family duty. I mean, they took care of me when I was a baby. I need to take care of them. That's the social contract. But they don't realize that rapidly turns into a full-time job commitment. And depending on the dynamics between carer and caregiver, that can really make life difficult for someone. However, all of these different situations can be helped or addressed in some way through enabling technology. So some examples here of enabling technology that can help for some of these problems that we've isolated. First is environmental control. This can be things like smart door locks, video doorbells, door sensors, or other sensors that can let someone know what things are happening in their home. So, for example, if someone is not opening the door for strangers or opening the door for everyone, then you can actually have a caregiver with a video doorbell who can at least see who's coming in, or lock the door if it needs to be locked, or know that the doors are being opened and left open. Someone else can actually take a look at this and see what sorts of interventions need to be made. There's other ones like motion lighting for nighttime navigation. You can actually get motion sensors that when they see motion, they turn the lights on. And that could just be a single light, or it could be turning on a whole bunch of lights through Alexa. And this way, you're not having to deal with someone letting go of their walker to try and feel for the light switch. You're not having to worry about someone tripping over a towel that was left on the floor that they didn't see. There's all sorts of different things that can be done just to help kind of contain the environment, to know who's coming, know who's going, have lights come on, things like that. Or know who's at the door. You can also control who's coming in. So if you're using a smart lock system, you can give each individual caregiver their own code. They can type that code in. If you have them falling out, if they get fired or whatever, you can erase their code so they can't come in later. And this can secure the property better and make sure that the person is safe. Evan, do you want to talk about some of the medication management supports?
Sure, yeah. Another category that we talk about often is routine support and like medication management. There's a couple ways we can implement that. One is the Alexa device with visual reminders. There's two kinds of Alexas. One's with screens, one without screens. They all have their use cases depending on what features you're looking for. But the Alexa has tons of features, has tons of tools that we can utilize. A lot of routines can be built into Alexa. And other smart assistant devices like it. They're pretty reliable tool for routines and reminders. The one with the screen can be set up to also give you visual representation of what the reminder is. That can also just be another form of information. So you can set up daily routines, remind members to do any activity that aligns with their goals. If they're trying to improve certain habits or stay on top of certain chores throughout the day, these reminders can, like I said, can just be audio only, or if they have a screen, they can kind of aid to encourage those activities. Example might be like at nighttime, maybe you have a nightly reminder that the Alexa voice tells the member directly right before they go to bed to remember to maybe place a battery operated device on a charger every night. So like a phone or hearing aids or something to kind of assist with the next day, to kind of be ready for the next day. And then of course you can set up a routine for medication. Here's a reminder to take your medication every day. But with something like that, you can also utilize a smart pill dispenser. These smart pill dispensers kind of help with the challenge to stay on top of someone's medication. But the smart pill dispenser, you can actually add family members or caregivers to the device, and they can kind of help keep track of the member's compliance and make sure they're on the recommended medication schedule. These devices also assist in physically sounding, making an alarm that goes off in the device that can only be turned off if the member picks up the device and puts the medication in their hand for that day. So it really kind of nudges you in that direction that you try to keep it compliant. Tablets with simplified interfaces. A lot of tablets offer offer assortment of like accessibility features that can be built, that are built into it already, that you just kind of have to activate and bring to the forefront. They kind of help reduce the visual noise and complexity of a device. Maybe have larger icons, more clearly labeled applications used more frequently to be prioritized. Maybe like regularly accessed settings or files can be brought up front of the homepage as well to reduce the needs to navigate. Or if you're using that to set up your routines as well, or your scheduling calendar, all that stuff can be made a little bit easier. Another category, monitoring and emergency responses. So a subcategory of that might be like fall detection, specifically wearables. In a lot of cases, members are just looking for peace of mind, or a family is looking for peace of mind for their member. You know, we can try a lot to prevent outcomes like falling in accidents, but accidents still happen. So families feel pretty urgent, and care teams as well, to be alerted to a fall so they can administer assistance or medical aid when a fall happens. And some of these devices that are wearable look like normal watches. Sometimes they're worn over the neck like a lanyard, maybe clipped on a belt. So you have multiple ways to wear the device if a member has certain preference, but kind of helps balance independence, kind of maintain privacy, but ultimately stay in the loop. So you can offer a few solutions there. Items I'm talking about have, some of them are like they work off the phone network, so they don't require Wi-Fi. So they work in the home, they work outside the home. The member kind of is more mobile in that regard. Some have push notifications that can be sent to the member's family or caregivers' phones if fall happens. It's just a way to kind of check in on your loved one, because some are also essentially phones. You can actually call them directly to the device and make sure that they're still okay, and make sure that they're still in their normal routine. And speaking of routines, like actual physical routines, activity tracking with caregiver alerts is another important aspect that we address. Activity tracking is a form of keeping caregivers or family in the loop without like constant like monitoring. It's like maybe a series of motion sensors throughout the member's day-to-day routine. So maybe a family member can say like, "Oh, I'm going to check up on mom," and then she can look and say, "Oh wow, her fridge has been open for 20 minutes. That's out of the ordinary. That's unusual. Let me give her a call and see how she's doing. Make sure she doesn't need any help." Something along that lines. Emergency buttons with auto dial functions. Some of those cellular devices that are wearable have basic SOS buttons on them. So you just press it, and it can contact individuals off the emergency contact list. So you can contact close family, contact a neighbor who maybe lives closest next door. Also, some of them have features where they contact a call center, and the call center will take over and try to contact people, all for the benefit of the member, to getting someone to check on the member. Or if it's a false alarm or a test, that can be alerted to as well. Idea is to get someone talking to the member immediately if they're distressed. And there's other dedicated options too for smart buttons around the house. We'll put something in the bathroom. If a member ever needs assistance, they can just press a button, and there's multiple ways where we can alert family or care members in those kind of situations.
Yeah, that's great. We've used a lot of those in the past, haven't we, Evan?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, another category would be under like cognitive engagement or social connection. So as we support individuals who may be aging or experiencing cognitive decline, two very powerful tools that we can use are opportunities for mental engagement for the individual, and then also just providing an opportunity for meaningful connection. So enabling technology offers simple, practical ways to promote both, especially through voice assistants like what Evan spoke about, smart displays like the Alexa Show devices, and picture-based communication tools. So voice assistants like Amazon Alexa and Google Assistant offer a wide variety of free interactive games. A lot of kids, they already know about this before anybody else in the family. So interactive games that are perfect for individuals with mild cognitive impairment or early stage dementia. So these can include games like memory games, like Memory Match or Categories, trivia games or Name That Tune style games for those individuals who may have more musical interests, and then also just like daily brain teasers or riddles. Just another good way to engage the brain of the individual that has access to these devices. They can really help them. So these games help reinforce recall, attention, and problem solving in a low pressure, accessible way, just by speaking. You don't have to press a button or navigate any apps. So for individuals with vision loss or dexterity challenges, this can be a big win for them. Even simple routines like saying, Alexa, give me a fun fact, can provide structure and spark conversation. And, just kind of looking ahead with the whole Alexa Plus that's coming out and a lot of the AI that's being introduced is, having cognitive or not cognitive, having conversations with the technology. It may sound weird, but there's some folks that we serve that they don't have family present in their life, and so providing some form of conversation, as weird as it sounds, it would be through technology, but that will improve their quality of life, I do believe. So easy access video calling. So Evan mentioned the Show 8 earlier, and one of the side benefits of having that device is you can actually do what's called like a drop-in. So social connection is just as important as cognitive stimulation. So devices like the Echo Show or other tablets with a screen and a camera, they can do one-touch video calling, or they can even just do it through voice, like I mentioned with the drop-in feature. And they make it incredibly easy to stay connected with family, friends, and caregivers. So we've worked with individuals who only needed a picture of a person's face. So we've had phones, old style phones. You still got to pick it up off the ringer, but they make special phones. They just have larger buttons, and you can actually replace those buttons with. You can put pictures of individuals in those buttons. So if you pick up the phone, push the picture of your daughter's face, and then it's going to automatically call your daughter. So that can help with some individuals. Helps, you can have like a daily morning check-in. So Evan mentioned routines earlier. You can set schedules for devices like virtual assistants to prompt. Hey, Sarah, why don't you pick up the phone and press your daughter's, maybe her name's Jane's face, so that it'll make a call and you can have a conversation with her. And you can have those kind of routines or prompts throughout the day. And that just helps people stay connected. Communication boards is another solution. It's kind of it can be a lower tech solution that I know Ezra's used. I've used it myself for individuals, maybe with aphasia that they have limited language skills, and they can communicate through touching a board that has pictures on it. Sometimes being able to provide an answer might be hard for an individual, but if you put a board in front of them that has, a big picture of yes, green, and like a checkbox, or a big picture of a red no with a big X through it, they can point to that and, hey, do you want a coffee this morning? And the individual might be able to touch that and give you the answer rather than just you making an assumption on whether or not they want the coffee. So that would be one example of like a lower tech. And then there are some tablets. Evan mentioned it earlier. You can use tablets, and they make some software, some applications that are they're focused on providing these picture boards to enhance communication. So sometimes you touch it and it would speak the command. So that'll help with communication and connection with people around them. So these all empower individuals to express themselves, whether it's I'm hungry, I need help, or even just choosing music or activities. We've seen people light up when they're finally able to initiate communication after being stuck relying on others. I think, Ezra, one of your stories that you told me in the past was about an individual. I think they were able to say they wanted a can of Coke or something like that. It's kind of stuck in my head. So, these are just the real life applications where it's not just, oh, I can't understand where that would be applicable. But if you were unable to communicate with people around you and they were all making all your decisions, just being able to have that voice or have that ability to determine what drink you're going to sit down with at the dinner table, it's very empowering. So at the end of the day, these technologies aren't about replacing human connection. They're about enhancing it. By giving people tools to engage mentally and socially, we help protect dignity, reduce isolation, and support a higher quality of life. So let's talk about some case examples and some success stories. So I think we'll just each share like one story, and one that pops in my head that I've just been thinking about because it's real simple, but a lot of times when I tell people what I do, I always hear this like, oh, I could use that for my mom, or my dad really needs that, and so they're like, give me an example. And so one of the, I think, real simple examples, but as our parents age or as we age, one of the risks that we have is tripping and falling and just the repercussions that can come with a fall. And so one of the deterrents to falling is actually being able to see better. And a lot of homes they're dark in the hallway, or the transition between one room to another might have a lip. And so being able to see where the obstacles are is very important. And so I like to just recommend motion lighting. So there's both plug-in motion lights, but then there's also just like stick on the wall motion lights that, when somebody's in that proximity, it lights up. So you can stick it above a door frame. And so anytime somebody walks under that door, it's going to light up and now you can see the transition. Or when they're walking down the hallway and, they can see where that, loose carpet is and hopefully avoid that and therefore avoid the trip. So motion lights on stairways as well. So you can, reduce the chances of a fall if they can see the treads on the stair. So it's my example. Evan, you want to share one?
Sure. Specifically with the topic of the day, first thing comes to mind is, same thing like Brady said. It's something. It's just so familiar. Unfortunately, when our parents get older, we want to make sure they're safe at night when they're sleeping. Maybe they have a tendency to get out of bed. Maybe they're fall risk, and it's in this story that I'm thinking of specifically. Yeah, it's like, well, how can we alert the family at nighttime to make sure if a member gets out of bed, that someone knows that they can get up and assist and make sure not have an unnecessary accident overnight. Because that affects your sleep personally. Like how do you sleep well, not knowing that when you're going to wake up to a crash and there's going to be problems, and that's kind of stressful. So sleep's so important for everybody, especially caretakers. So like a motion sensor or a bed mat, obviously, is really important. Any way to kind of page or alert a family member or caregiver from sleep, like, hey, this individual who is at risk of falling, who should not be getting out of bed by themselves, has just put their feet on the ground, like they're getting ready to get up. So maybe intervene and assist.
Ezra, you got one?
He's muted.
Sorry. In my case, I have a member who has some cognitive impairments. Her daughter lives a couple doors down, and she wants to make sure that her mother's being taken care of well. So this is things like she has a Ring doorbell that shows up on an Alexa show inside the mother's apartment, so the mother can see who's at the door, but it also goes to her daughter's phone as well. We link those accounts. So every time someone comes to the door, her daughter sees who's there, and can have the same discussions with her as her mother can about, are you legit? It can ask those hard questions that her mom may not be answering or asking, and being overly trusting. She also has some door sensors, and her daughter gets a text message on her phone anytime a door gets opened. So the main door, obviously, but there's also a side door that she's not supposed to use, that nobody is supposed to use. So if that door is opened, that's the sign maybe of a home invasion, or, for the mother's doing something she shouldn't. There's no reason why that sensor should ever go off, but it's good to have it. It's just yet another fail safe. And between the two, she gets the alert if the door is open for more than 60 seconds. So she knows she can check, is her front door locked, and if not, she has the app on her phone and she can lock it directly. So if it's 10 o'clock at night, she can check, is that door locked, from her house, without actually having to make a hike out in the rain to go check and make sure that her mother's door is locked. And that just, they're kind of a rough neighborhood, and this just gives a lot of extra security and peace to her daughter. Her mother is free to live her life and do her stuff, but the daughter can keep an eye on her a little bit easier. through the use of the technology.
Great. Yeah, so let's, this is a recorded call or a recorded session, so we don't actually have live people providing questions, but I have some general questions that I get whenever I talk about what we do. And so I'm going to go ahead and field this first one myself. It's how do I know if my loved one is ready for enabling technology? So it's something it's fresh on my mind because I was just speaking to a neighbor recently, and we were talking about his in-laws, and they were in a situation where him and his wife were discussing whether or not technology was something they wanted to implement for their house, and we talked about how the sooner you can implement it, the better for the individual served, because if they're in a state of cognitive decline, they're going to be more open to the technology earlier on, and plus they gain familiarity with it, so that it's not such a big change later in their life. So for that purpose, I say the sooner the better for it, and not just because I want to push technology, but because I do believe that that's going to provide a better outcome for both the individual served as well as their support team or their caregivers or their family that live with them. Anybody want to add anything to that?
The part you mentioned about familiarity is key, especially when you're talking about cognitive decline. The earlier you can start these skills and the more time you can practice these skills and become familiar with it, that pays off big dividends later. It's hard to get, especially if you're talking about some of this technology. It's very, very high tech. I have people who don't have the cognitive ability to dial a number. They can't remember the number. They can't dial it in on a landline. They get confused and then dial the wrong number. And if I were to just go up to them and give them a smartphone, it's not going to help, because there's a bazillion apps and settings and little switches you can do. And if I were to try and sit down and teach them, water's leaking out of the pail faster than I can pour it in. And they're not going to get a lot of use out of that smartphone, just because there's a lot of things that are very complex about it. But if I said, okay, well, let's not talk about anything on the smartphone except how to use the digital assistant, and then all you have to do is remember its name. You say Siri, or you say Google, call Brian, call Tammy. That's all you have to do. You don't have to remember their name, or you don't have to remember their number. You just have to say its name, call Brian. And we can write those steps down. We can print that off big. We can write the steps down, put it right next to your phone. And then, at that point, it becomes an easy technology. We're not talking about any of the million other things the smartphone can do. We're just using it as a voice interface where you say, call so-and-so, and it calls that person. And at that point, it becomes a lot simpler than a landline phone. It becomes simpler than trying to remember the buttons and which order you have to hit them in and all of those sorts of things. But if someone is used to using Siri, like I use Siri all the time on my phone. My wife uses Google as a voice dialer all the time. I don't actually need it. I don't have problems with my thumbs. I don't have problems with my memory, but I'm building those skills, and there may come a day when I need those skills, and I've already been practicing. So, the time to work on building the skills is before you actually need it, if at all possible.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. Great ad. Evan, this one, I think this one's for you. Just kind of a softball toss here on the, so some of this stuff sounds like it's probably pretty expensive. Can you talk a little bit about the financial side of this technology?
Well, my answer, my typical answer is, unfortunately, I'm not really I don't deal with the whole price side of things. I deal with the solution side of things. So if you need more detailed information about costs, I would talk to Brady.
Right, but I guess I'm thinking if somebody's watching this, they might be wondering like, okay, one, they might not be in the state of Tennessee. So what's like a range of equipment costs that these items that we're even talking about?
So a lot of the items we use are kind of just off the shelf consumer grade electronics, things that you can get off any online store or box store for the most part, something kind of solutions available. But some of these are as low as $20 solutions to, a couple $100. Few items can hit, near 2,000 or more, just depending on how specialty they are. But we try to prioritize your goals and the items that match your goals the most. So to see what we can get out of your proposal.
And I'm gonna add to that just a little bit. Let's do a little shameless plug here, Evan. Where can they go to find out information about this technology and kind of how it apply to people?
Oh yes. If you're just not as low ball as you thought, huh? So we have our own website here that we've recently been kind of polishing and got it up and going. So you can kind of look at what's the word I'm looking for? A library of options for.
Would it be called the Technology Finder, Evan?
It would. It's so new that I don't have it burned in my brain yet. The Technology Finder for EHS here, or yeah, Enable Technology Solutions. Is it just the technologyfinder.com? What is it?
No, well, our website is enablingtechsolutions.com, but then there's just
Technology Finder. Okay.
yeah, the link on the site that they'll see it's called the Technology Finder. So, and we're going to continue to develop that. Just I think Ezra, why don't you tell them about like why that would be helpful versus just going to Amazon, and then we'll let you close it out after you get done explaining that, Ezra.
So on our website, we have quite a few links to technology that we found helpful. It's roughly organized by category. So if it's tagged, hey, this is a vision device, or hey, this can be used for someone with dexterity issues. That's enough to wet the whistle to give you the introduction of how this device might be used. Whereas Amazon doesn't actually provide that. Something like an iPhone or an iPad or an Alexa, can be used for a lot of different things. It can be used for hearing. It can be used for low vision or poor dexterity. It can be used for home automation. It can be, there's all sorts of places where some of these technologies can be used. And that at least gives you a starting point. We're dealing with someone who has cerebral palsy. We're dealing with someone who has low vision. It may not be immediately obvious how you could use this for someone with these conditions, but that's why we're here. You can ask us. But it gives a starting point for your solutions for low vision or dexterity or mobility or things like that. All right. Were there any other questions, Brady, from the audience?
Nope. Well, we'll call that the end of the Q&A session. Go right ahead and wrap us up.
All right. In conclusion, our contact information is in the link below. If you have questions or comments, please reach out to us. Our goal is to help people be more independent through the use of technology. Next week, we'll be having a special guest speaker, Cheryl Soche with LVI America. We'll be doing some product highlights and discussion of devices that can support individuals with low vision. Should be next Tuesday.
Probably 2 weeks out.
2 weeks out. 2 weeks out. 2 weeks out on Tuesday. Links to the next session will be on our website. Thank you and have a wonderful day.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.